Megan, welcome to Media and Me. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Really good, thank you. I've been really looking forward to this episode because, like I was just saying before it started, we have a lot in common. For the viewers, we are both from Wrexham and we both went to the same journalism school, News Associates.
We did, yeah. You were in Manchester now. You were in London, weren't you, originally?
Yeah, I was in London, then I moved. So we've got a lot to unpack. Before we get started, I'd love you to give us a little intro into who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I'm Megan. I'm from Wrexham, born and bred. I went to the University of Aberdeen to study English, and then somewhere along the way decided that I wanted to be a journalist, went to do my NCCJ at Manchester, and then now I'm a regional reporter for LeaderLive.
So, going back to where you said you somehow along the way decided you wanted to be a journalist.
And I've heard like a lot of your guests saying as well, I didn't realise that journalism was a career that you could do. So I was 15, 16 and I launched a blog. All I knew is that I wanted to write, and I always wanted to write about real people, real stories. And so, okay, I'll start with myself. I was 16. I thought, this is going to be great. And I would just write about absolutely anything.
Did you get picked on for your blog or not?
Not really. I kept it private. I didn't flaunt it. Did you? I feel like in this day and age, it's quite cool to have a blog. Everyone, back then it wasn't really.
Absolutely not.
It was kind of in the midst of like YouTubers, and I knew that I wanted to be a journalist, and so I was such a nerd. Like academia was my thing. And so I used to watch all the study tubers, and obviously one of them is Eve Bennett, and she said, oh, I want to be a journalist. And I thought, you're a YouTuber, why would you throw being a YouTuber? That's so cool. Why would you throw that away to be a journalist? And then she was saying that you have to kind of get your NCCJ, which I think she described it as being, that's the PGC for teaching. That's the qualification that you kind of really need if you're going to be a journalist and take it seriously. So I was like, okay, what on earth is an NCCJ? I was there Googling, and I thought, I'm going to have to, what on earth is it? What do I do? How do I get one? And it was through her talking about being a journalist on her YouTube channel that I thought, that is perfect. Why have I never thought of that before? I love my blog. I love writing. And even now my job just doesn't feel like a job. It still feels like I'm in my bedroom as a 16-year-old just writing about stories. And yeah, so it was kind of through watching YouTube and being a bit of a secret nerd. I wasn't a secret nerd. I was definitely top of the class in most things. But it was kind of, watching Eve and people like Eve and hearing her journey. And then obviously it just kind of one thing led to another.
I saw on Instagram that you'd done like a little bio for News Associates, and you'd said that getting into journalism could be like a bumpy road. Yeah. What did that bumpy road consist of for you? Because I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. It's not an easy industry to get into by any stretch of the imagination. What did your journey to becoming a regional reporter look like?
Okay, so I think coming from Wrexham, and you'll know this, it's different now, but 5 years ago there were not as many opportunities as there are now. I suffer quite badly with anxiety, and so I'm not a city girl. I want to be in the countryside, and being in the countryside and wanting to be a journalist don't go hand in hand. And so I really struggle to find that middle ground of, I want to write stories, I want to be a journalist, but I don't want that city life. I don't want to be in front of a camera. And so that was a big struggle for me. And so luckily, obviously News Associates is in Manchester and London. So Manchester is about an hour commute for me. So I did the part-time course. So it was once every Saturday and Wednesday. And so it was doable for me to kind of drive into the city, could do the course, but I could still live in the comforts of being in Wrexham and being somewhere where I'm quite familiar. So that was a challenge, but luckily I could do it in Manchester. And then the job came up 2 months before I finished NCCJ, just on Google, having a look at regional reporters, and went to the interview, wasn't expecting anything, to come of it, because I was quite enjoying the job that I had at the time that wasn't journalism related at all. And I got it, and I had 2 months to go. I just started my exams, so I was like, I'm doing the job, but I haven't done my exams yet. It was quite a weird...
Like, the stars aligned for you in that respect.
It was crazy. I was like studying for my public affairs exam, and then writing about council meetings and going to do inquests at the same time, so it was like learning on the job, and it was brilliant. 14 months later I'm still there, so it's brilliant.
That is unreal. I wanted to have a chat with you about regional journalism in general, because I think the Leader has a really good presence in Wrexham, but I don't think that's the case for a lot of other regional papers. We've seen a decline in how kind of well respected regional journalism is, with the cuts and all of that. I wanted to kind of get your take on it as a regional reporter, because I feel like we don't hear enough from the people who work in the industry.
Yeah, obviously, you know, a lot of people, when they say they want to be journalists, it's, you think of BBC, ITV, and they're big jobs, they're great jobs, and they're really important jobs. You know, it's national news, but there's something to be said for, you know, community news and people working for local newspapers, and you need to build these great relationships with the people in your community, and because it affects, I think it's more personal and it's more intimate when it's regional news. You know, there's so many people that I now know through my job, and it's all about creating really great contacts with people and doing follow-ups with them. And you need to, I think it's all about community, and especially for Wrexham, because Wrexham now, you know, I used to kind of say, you know, I'm from like somewhere near Chester. I'm sure you did it as well. I never used to say I'm from Wrexham.
I'm from outside Chester.
No one knows where Wrexham is, so I'd say I'm near Chester on the Welsh border, and no one knows where it is. Now I'll say I'm from Wrexham. People know exactly where Wrexham is. We have so many Americans who come here, you know, because of the football club.
I was going to say, do you want to explain why that is?
So basically, we have a little football club. You might have heard of it.
Football ground was the first place I ever got my first job when I was 15. Yeah, I worked at Wrexham Football Ground before Ryan Reynolds owned it. I always think that, actually.
But it is. It's crazy. So, yeah, Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds bought the club, which is just, at the time, was just the most bizarre thing I think that could have possibly happened. I still don't get it. I write about it constantly, and I still don't understand it.
Wrexham? And my dad's like, well, why not Wrexham? And I'm like, yeah, but why?
I know, it's crazy. So they bought it, obviously, and now Wrexham is supported by fans across the world. They have a documentary which has won Emmys and BAFTAs, and I'm just like, this is crazy. It's on Disney Plus, and everyone knows about Wrexham, and I'm like, this is just bizarre to me. So a lot of my job is writing about what they're up to. If Rob or Ryan do anything, if they breathe, I've got to write about it, because people want to know about it, and it's great for us as a small community, I think, to have now, you know, all that the economy is growing because of tourism. And that's something that I love writing about. It makes me feel quite proud. Growing up feeling quite ashamed where I came from, in a way, you know, like a proper working class town, to now being really proud to not only live there but write about it as well, which is really great.
It's really nice to hear. How is the landscape kind of changing at the Leader? Like, are you on TikTok and Instagram? Because back in the day, a regional paper was a regional paper.
We're definitely pushing for it now. Since I started working there, I think I'm probably the one that controls their TikTok the most. I'm always kind of putting things on TikTok. That's a huge part, isn't it? Is being a digital reporter is getting out on Twitter and Instagram, and so we definitely try and use social media as much as we possibly can. Definitely. Like, we had a visit from Prince William back in March. And so I was there kind of in the background with all the BBC reporters, and one of my videos of him went viral for our Leader page, which was kind of really good.
That's really interesting to note, actually, because just for anyone watching this that thinks they have to get into the BBC or ITV to have the same amazing, like, cool opportunities, you're like evidence that is not the case. Like,
my favourite day.
You can have a regional job and still experience all the amazing, wow things that comes with being a journalist as a regional reporter as well.
Definitely. And, you know, there are days where, you know, there isn't that much breaking news, and it is a lot of like council meetings, but I find it all really interesting. Like, I don't find any of it boring or repetitive. It's just kind of every single day. You have no idea. You could have like an hour left of your shift, and then you have, like, you know, huge breaking news, and it's like groundbreaking, and it's, you know, and it's interesting because I live there, and it affects me, and it affects the people that I write for. So yeah, that Prince William coming, I remember my editor sent us all an email, and it was kind of like, we need to have like a meeting to prep how we're going to do this. And it was for St. David's Day, he came to a local primary school, and I used to actually volunteer in that primary school years and years ago.
That's a full circle moment.
When I had no idea what I wanted to do, I was kind of just like a teaching assistant. And so to go back, and I was so nervous, like my partner will tell you, I was so nervous. I had to like wear a suit and everything.
Did you get to speak to him?
I spoke to him very briefly. I shook his hand. And he'd been to the Turf, which is the pub for the football club, that morning. And Rob McElhenney was there, and he tried a shot of his whiskey. So I tried to be funny, and I made some comment about him having whiskey for breakfast, and he just, I don't even know what he said, but I bright red in the face. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. This is awful. Yeah. It just follow him around, take photos. I didn't realise how much prep went into a royal visit. it was crazy. We had to do rehearsals. It was kind of like, at 7:10 or 11:10, he's going to be in this room. At 11 minutes past 11, he's going to be in this
Was
room.
the
At 12,
schedule that time?
it was so bizarre. It was crazy. I got there 2 hours before he showed up just to rehearse exactly where I needed to stand. Everyone was running ahead because you had to you weren't following him around the school. We had to be first so that we could capture him walking into the rooms, if that makes sense. So it was crazy, and it just happened so fast. And I had the biggest adrenaline rush afterwards. And I was like, oh my God, that's the Peach King of England. This is crazy.
And you've met him?
Yeah.
That is wild.
And I was like, I've only been in the job at that point. I'd been here 8 months. And I was like, how on earth is my editor how are they trusting me to do this? This is because there were 3 locations he was going to in Wrexham. And so there was kind of one reporter at each location. I thought, if I mess this up, there's no one here to back me up. It's me or it's no one. But you did it and
you pulled through. Talking about, just going back to anxiety in journalism, I also struggle with anxiety, and I think in this kind of industry you have to be really you have to put yourself out there, number one, which can be really difficult, and put yourself in situations where you feel nervous to do certain things, and sometimes things almost feel impossible. Like, I remember I did an interview with John Pienaar on the Times Radio, and I came off it and I cried my eyes out, and I rang my mum and dad in tears because I was like, it's just gone so bad. What would your advice out there be to people? Because I've not kind of touched on this so far with any of my other guests, but I think it's something a lot more people can relate to than what you would imagine. Going into the industry as a journalist or anyone working in the media, what would be your kind of top tips for trying to overcome those fears and putting yourself out there so you still get the most out of your job?
Yeah, it's still something that I'm still trying to navigate. I think you've got to remember the reasons why you went into the industry in the first place. So for me, it's about connecting with real people, telling their stories, giving a voice to the people who perhaps otherwise wouldn't have one. And I think as far as dealing with, anxiety and personal fear and all of that goes, I think you've just got to be open and honest about it. Every single person, like you said, has it to some level of, some degree. And so if you go somewhere, you're interviewing someone, I think you just got to be as prepared as you possibly can be. Just take your time with it. Remember that you've got every right to be there. You are a journalist, you're qualified, you've been chosen to do it. Remember that, opportunities like this don't always happen. So to make the most of it and to learn from it. And if you do something and it doesn't go to plan, then, learn from that. There's so many things that I've done. I thought, oh God, looking back, I thought, God, that was so embarrassing. I could have done that so differently. But now I use that and I learn from it. So the next time I have another opportunity to do something like that, it all makes you better. Every experience, whether it goes well or it doesn't go well, it all makes you better, a better journalist.
So right.
So I think, you can go to journalism school, you can learn everything, but until you've done it and you're in front of the camera or behind the screen writing the stories, I think it's, it's so different, and it's all experience and it's all worthwhile, I think.
Lastly, I wanted to touch on your goals for the future. Obviously, you work in regional news now. Yeah. Do you ever see yourself going beyond regional news, or do you feel like you want to do that forever? Because to me, it sounds like you love that job and it's kind of something you nurture.
I do really love it for now. I think it depends where my life goes. So I'm very family orientated as well. And so I think it just, at the moment, I think I want to stay where I am. I'm very happy doing regional news. I learn so much day to day, every single week. I've been there for 14 months now, and this week I covered my very first inquest on my own without having to shadow a colleague, and that was a huge step for me. And I had such a high afterwards. It was a really difficult case to cover, but I did it, and that was I'm still 14 months on the job and I'm still learning new things all the time. I'd like to do
our job as well.
It is exactly every single day. Exactly. You think that when you qualify from the NCCJ, you think, okay, I know everything now. This is great, but you don't. You haven't got a clue. And I'm sure in 20, 30 years, if we're still doing this, that I'll still be learning things every single day.
Absolutely.
I'd like to try national news at some point. I don't think I'd ever do broadcasting. I love the idea of doing podcasts and radio. I'm quite chatty. Once I get going, I could talk all day. So I don't know. I'm open to a lot of things. Journalism isn't just newspapers, and it isn't just, the ITV News. There's so much that I can do, and that really excites me. So I don't know, I'm open to a bit of everything, I think, at the moment.
Absolutely. Megan, thank you so much for being a guest on Media and Me. I think sharing your insight into the world of regional journalism will really give people a different aspect to it, and think, you know what, you don't have to aim for the BBC, you don't have to aim for ITV, you can have an amazing, fulfilling career in regional journalism if you want to. If people want to find you on socials and follow your journey, where would they go?
I'm everywhere. I'm Twitter, Instagram. So I'm Megan Half News, and yeah, I'm sure I'll tag my socials and everything. But yeah, you can find my author profile on LeaderLive. But yeah, I would encourage regional journalism. It's such a great way to kind of get your foot in the door. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
No worries at all. That brings us to the end of the first season of Media and Me. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for watching. I don't currently have a plan for a season 2, but let's see what happens. I really hope anyone wanting to get into the media has watched these episodes and they felt like they can take something from it, and hopefully it doesn't feel so challenging anymore. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you very soon. Yay! Oh my god, I can't believe it's done!